welcome back to another day in Chicago, you guys. So we're on our way to a tour, you guys. Before we get into this video, you guys, we're stopped by McDonald's. Don't forget to like the video, you guys, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys when we get to the tour. All right, bye. We found a parking spot. We had to park. It took a long time to even look for a parking spot. I don't even know why. But anyways, it's like a 2-hour tour, you guys, in Chicago that we're about to go on. A food tour that you prepay and stuff. But right now we're just walking, looking at the city. The city do remind me of New York a little bit. But we're about to go into Ross because your girl favorite.
Chicago's favorite ultimate food park.
That's what we're waiting for, you guys. But you guys, look at the building.
Imagine the Native Americans who gave it that name. Do you think they wanted to live here? No, they were like, it's a gross, stinky onion swamp. However, the first Europeans who arrived in this area, who were the French, when they got here in the 1600s, specifically 1673, two explorers, Joliet and Marquette, when they saw this spot, they were like, this is a fantastic place for a city. That's what they said, except in French, not in English. But that was the exact translation. So they saw a lot of potential here because, of course, as we know, French people love stinky things. But more importantly, they saw the potential of the water connections because you have the Chicago River, which we're going to cross later, which goes into Lake Michigan, through the Great Lakes. Eventually, you can get all the way out to the Atlantic Ocean. There are some obstacles like Niagara Falls you have to get around, but, you know, no big deal. You can just hop in the barrel, you know, whatever. And then going the other way, you go up the Chicago River. You can get to where the mouth of the river is, about 6 miles southwest of here in what is now kind of southwest Chicago near Midway Airport. You can take your canoe out of the water, trudge through the Stinky Onion Swamp about 3 miles to the Des Plaines River, which eventually flows to the Illinois, which goes to the Mississippi, which goes to the Gulf of Mexico. So you have water routes in 2 directions to 2 coasts. So very strategic. The French saw the potential, but they didn't really realize it because Marquette died on the way back to France, and Joliet lost all of his papers describing the spot in a canoe accident, which is always how it goes, right? Just when your life seems like everything's going perfectly, you have a canoe accident, everything falls apart. I feel like 2020 was just like one big canoe accident. So anyway, so it did not go well for the French. However, the first non-native settler was a French man who was of mixed French and African descent. He was from Haiti. So his name was Jean-Baptiste, Juan, Dusable. Do you have Haiti connections?
Yes, we're Haitian.
Cool. Well, yeah. So we can represent. Yeah, we can go by. There's a little bust of him by the river if we want to stop by and get a little.
We saw it on our way.
Bust. So Jean-Baptiste Juan Dusable was our very first non-native settler. He settled here in the 1790s. He was a fur trader. He didn't really attract a lot of other folks. He was kind of a solitary guy, just here by his lonesome. But the Americans started expanding west about 40 years after that, so early 1800s. So 1830s, Americans were coming out here in droves. And before we founded a city here, we had a fort called Fort Dearborn that was built in 1803, factored into a war that happened in 1812. Do you guys know what war happened in 1812? Yes, the War of 1812. That was an easy question for you guys. Just wanted to check. Just want to make sure everybody's with me. So yeah, War of 1812. That was between the British and the Americans. And in this particular battle, the Native Americans had been given a lot of ammunition by the British because they had kind of the same plan. They didn't want the Americans to go further west. They didn't want the Americans to go north into Canada. So everyone at our fort was captured or killed at that battle at the War of 1812. Which we liked so much, we added a star to our flag for that event. So if you've seen the Chicago flag, if you haven't, I'll point it out later. It's a big deal for us in Chicago. We got a lot of stars, we got a lot of things going on. So yeah, big deal for the city, 1812, the War of 1812. And then the city was finally founded in 1833. And we grew really quickly because we were like the frontier, or the western frontier. Meat was coming through here, grain was coming through here, lumber was coming through here. Based on one of those materials, you know what we were building everything out of? Only one of those is construction materials. So that was yeah, wood. Yeah. Thank you. We're not saying meat. Some people, yes, we salted the meat and we built walls out of it.
That is what she said. You just didn't hear her.
Beef jerky house. That would be a fun house. I just eat my way out of it. But yeah, we built everything out of wood, which led to a little problem in 1871. Anyone know what that was? The fire. Woo!
Woo!
Yeah. It's called the Great Fire. Not really great in that way though. Kind of more like the Depression was great. It was a big deal for the city. A third of the city was burned. 100,000 people were homeless. So it was not particularly good. Do you guys know the story? Have you heard that story of like how the fire started? It's a little kind of story involving a cow. So yeah, supposedly this Mrs. O'Leary was an Irish woman. She was an Irish woman, so she didn't know what she was doing. That was like back then. They blamed everything on Irish people. So like this careless Irish woman left a lantern in the barn. Her cow kicked it over. Later, the journalist who wrote this story admitted they made it up. So it was just kind of prejudice against Irish people. And the city eventually apologized to the O'Leary family 120 years later. So in the 1990s. So yeah, kind of classic. So anyway, so it took them, they were like, here's a certificate, your cow is exonerated from all charges, sorry about that, Anyway, so nobody knows what started the fire, but it burned very quickly and very rapidly. People thought the river would stop the fire, but we were dumping all sorts of fun things in the river back then. So the river caught on fire also. It went right through downtown, went all the way up to the north side. So
Stinky onion burns, I guess.
Exactly, stinky onions mixed with stinky sewage by that point and stinky meatpacking waste and stinky chemicals. So there was a lot of stinky stuff. So yeah, it burnt a good chunk of the city and ended up, if any of you have been up to Lincoln Park or the Lincoln Park Zoo, that's about where the fire made it up to. So pretty much the whole north side and the whole downtown was burned. So after the fire, we were like, we got to rebuild the city, bigger, better, stronger than before. We built out of brick and stone and steel. Still no meat, I'm sorry. But yeah, we were rebuilding the city. And by 1893, we had officially felt like we had come back. We were going to have a big party to celebrate our rising from the ashes of the fire. Even know what that party was in 1893? The World's Fair. So one of the biggest World's Fairs in the world. It was here in Chicago. 27 million people came to the World's Fair. It was a huge event. We had the first Ferris wheel in the world. It's where the brownie was invented. It's where the Vienna beef sausage, basis of our Chicago hot dog, was introduced. It's where Pabst beer won its blue ribbon. Very historic event for all of mankind. PBR beer. Probably the only award they've ever won for their beer, to be honest. But they were really clinging on to that one blue ribbon they got back in 1893. So yeah, if you look at the fine print, it says voted America's best in 1893. So I'm not lying. So yeah, it was a big deal, and a lot of people came to the city. Also, one of the first large-scale demonstrations of electricity. So we had all these beautiful neoclassical structures, kind of like Greek temples, lit up with lights. So it's called the White City. It's this dazzling kind of display. Also, you may have heard of this book called Devil in the White City. So that's kind of the dark side of it. There was a serial killer, actually the first documented serial killer in America. Good job, Chicago. We got the first serial killer. So yeah, he was kind of also on the loose at the time of the World's Fair. So that's a great book if you want to learn more about Chicago history. But that brings us up to about 1900. We continue to be this kind of industrial hub. We got some more stars on our flag. We got a star for the fire. We got a star for the World's Fair. We had another World's Fair in 1933 to celebrate the Depression. It wasn't really celebrating the Depression, but it was like trying to raise people's spirits in the Depression, called the Century of Progress, 100 years of Chicago's existence from 1833. And Chicago continued to be this big presence in America. Obviously less industrial now than it used to be, but that's also nice. It's a lot cleaner. There's parks. In fact, some of the parks we're seeing today on the tour are in spots that used to be industry spots. So it's kind of a neat mix. And throughout our history, because we've had all this industry, we've had lots of immigrants from all over the world coming to Chicago. So we have this very interesting food culture here, which we'll get more into at some of our other food stops. But that's kind of an overview of Chicago. Does anyone have any questions about any of that stuff?
Yeah, we do.
Just so you know, that's not happening. They're pretty crowded in here today, so we'll probably just hang out here. It is street food. It's typically eaten standing up anyway. But I'm going to go in and check if our hot dogs are ready, and then I'll tell you guys a little bit about hot dogs.
Okay, thank you.
Extra vegetables, because it was the Depression. Not a lot of people were buying vegetables, and he was like, what am I going to do with all this surplus? So he was like, oh, maybe I'll just grill up some hot dogs and just throw some vegetables on top. And he called it the Depression Sandwich. What a great name. So yeah, just like the name of our city. Everyone wants to advertise it. No, so we didn't call it the Depression Sandwich for very long. We eventually called it Chicago Style, or everything on it. There's one other version of that you'll hear sometimes that just dragged through the garden, which is still pretty appropriate, I think. Get all these veggies on top, very healthy. You know, they're pickled, but whatever, it's fine, they're still healthy. That is now one of our most popular snacks in Chicago. So I would say this is kind of the equivalent of like the New York pizza slice. You know, deep dish is not really a quick, portable snack item, but in Chicago, if you want to grab a quick little bite to eat between other things you're doing, eat it as you walk down the sidewalk, you'll eat a Chicago-style hot dog. So that's a big thing. If you guys have trash, if you want to dump.
So that wraps it up for this video, you guys. Don't forget to like the video, you guys. Comment down below, have you been to Chicago? And of course, subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. I'll see you guys in my next video.